welcome to House of PMOs, another news session this week. We are going to be looking at the role of the PMO Administrator. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes as people come in. It's been a really popular session, actually, this one, which I don't know why I'm surprised, you know, but it's lovely to see that lots of people are obviously interested in the role of a PMO administrator, but not only any old role, one that make really great PMO administrators. So thanks very much for joining us. Hopefully your week has been good so far. I've actually just got back off holiday. I had a few days away in the north of England, and anybody who's on the session, I've been up in Northumberland, which has been lovely, a lovely breakaway. Before we get started, you'll probably realise, if you've been to any of our sessions before, that we get quite chatty on chat. And throughout this session, I'm probably not going to be pausing for many questions, but if you put them into chat, I've kind of got one eye here, I'll be able to pick up anything as we go through. But if you do want to chat to anybody else who's here, why don't we just start by letting you know, put in there where you sat right now, whether country or county or town or room in your house, or in the office even. Hopefully some of you are back in the offices as well, so it'd be lovely to know where you are, so I can kind of visualize you. So today's session, top 5 things that make great PMO administrators. For anybody who's joining us who are not already familiar, the reason why we've pulled out that particular title, PMO Administrator, is it is part of the I suppose the roles that form part of the PMO competency framework, that hopefully some of you you know, are familiar with it. But there's 4 roles within it: PMO Administrator, PMO Analyst, PMO Manager, and PMO Director. And we thought that actually what would be really good is to start picking off, you know, what are, you know, some of the, getting into the nitty-gritty of some of these roles as well, just so we can kind of understand, you know, well, what does make a really great PMO administrator. And certainly if you're working within a role at the moment where you haven't got much to compare yourself with, you could be the only PMO administrator, or maybe just a couple of you, and it's always good to try and get an external view. Like I said, I mean, a lot of the time, certainly in my career, I've advised a lot of people over the years about how to get into PMO, and how to get, not only get into, but get on. So hopefully we'll pull out some of those things today. So here's the agenda that we're going to be looking at. It's kicking off with the role of a PMO administrator, and what does a PMO administrator actually need in order to be able to do the role. We're going to talk about the top 5 great things, but I also wanted to put in here the top 5 not so great, just so we can do a little comparison and get into some of the nitty-gritty of the role and where these things might pop up. We're obviously going to end up on an high note, because that's what you've got to do in a presentation. We can't leave people hanging with the bad stuff around PMO administrators. Not that it's that bad, but we'll end on a high note, and we'll also talk more about what's coming up next. So hopefully, if you're not already familiar, House of PMO, if you've not, you know, just looked at this session, we made it a 3 session because we wanted to make sure that you know, that we got the message out far and wide about great PMO administrators. So let's crack on. So it makes sense that we actually have a look at what is a PMO administrator. You know, very clearly, for, you know, for many people who've been working in this field for a while, it's the role where you're supporting projects, programs, or portfolio managers and their teams, and you generally tend to focus around the administrative and secretariat aspects of the role. So very clearly, you know, it is very much about that supporting role. So if anybody disagrees with that kind of headline statement, please, you know, feel free to pop in things into chat, and I can certainly pick things up as I go along. But that's the headline. You know, it is very much that role where, you know, you're supporting a project manager and their team, in any aspects that are more of the administrative and secretarial aspects. And what we mean by that, let's have a look at, you know, this is the role profile that you'll see in the competency framework. And there's a top 5 kind of tasks and activities or roles and responsibilities that a PMO administrator has. And you'll see there that, you know, that first box there is about a comprehensive administrative service. And we've got some things in there, but I think you'll know that generally you're the person that's the kind of center point of contact. When anybody's got any kind of question or query, they always tend to, you know, come to the PMO administrator because they're the person that tends to know what's going on. You know, so who better than to come and ask to do various bits and pieces for people. But by and large, you know, when you first start working in a project environment and with a project team, there'll be a lot of kind of things that need setting up, meetings that are happening, you know, bits of things that kit that needs buy-in, or minutes that need taking, and actions that need chasing. All of those kind of things we kind of put in that bracket around the administrative side of projects. And then generally, the way that I've always talked about with people, you know, we're trying to get into PMO and what this kind of role is all about, is you're generally spend quite a bit of time around reports and reporting. So there's that kind of collation of certain reports. For example, with a project, working at a project level, you'll have a lot of meetings that are, you know, about progress. So how things are working out on the project. A project manager could be, you know, quite a big team and wanting to understand where is each person in terms of their efforts against the plan for the project. So a lot of data that kind of needs collating and putting into a format that will work, you know, can be understood and read easily. But often if you're working within a larger organization, your project is one of many, and the reports will all go upwards to the next level, to the next people, whether that be up as part of a program or further up in terms of a portfolio. So there's a lot of information and data and stuff like that, which generally tends to be, you know, pulled together in terms of reporting. And again, information, documentation, things that need updating tend to fall to the administration level around, you know, updating the risks and actions and issues and change and dependency logs and registers. Those are the kind of things that you'll get involved in, you know, updating those on the behalf of the project manager. And again, for a lot of people with project level type stuff, when you're working with a project and a project team, a lot of people use timesheeting and, you know, recording of time, but ultimately gets updated into the plans, or it might get pushed on to the finance department, things like that. So you're doing a lot more of a, you know, whatever the project manager needs around the admin side of a project, it is essentially, you know, your role to work with that project manager to do that. So hopefully that all makes sense, and is you know, that is the role of a PMO administrator. That's how the PMO sees that role, and that's how you'll find it in the competency framework. So what do they need? Well, there's five things really that go into making any role, really. It doesn't matter if we're talking about a PMO administrator, or if we're talking about an accountant, or you know, or a doctor. It doesn't really matter. These are the kind of core components that really make up anybody's work, really. And so what we're going to do is take you through what these things are that PMO administrators need, and then we'll start to look at, well, what makes them great. So the word competency in competence, generally, what we're talking about when you'll hear the word competencies is it's actually a defined combination of knowledge, skills, and behaviours. And when we mean competent, it means that we can do our job to a required standard. So that's what it means. So we use knowledge, skills, and behaviours to help us perform those tasks and activities. And those tasks and activities are some of the things that we've just talked about. You know, so competencies are about this combination that allows you to be able to do this job well. So when it comes to a PMO administrator, it generally falls into two large buckets, for want of a better word. So one of them is about administration, and you'll see that term there, P3M, which essentially is a project, program, and portfolio. So we can be talking about a administration role at any one of those levels, but generally, by and large, the P3M administration is about that day-to-day support, the kind of things we've already just talked about, the assistance that you're providing, and that support around a secretarial and administrative task. So pretty straightforward. Just drop back a bit. When it comes to P3M delivery support, these are the main competencies that you're likely to be using when you're working as a PMO administrator. Now, there's change control, information management, issue management, reporting, risk management, and financial management. Those are what we're considered to be the core components. Now, what it also means is that when you look at something like that, and you're sitting here and you might be reading through those as well, actually, I don't really get involved in financial management or in risk management. That's fine. That's totally fine. What we've said is that these are would be the dominant competencies you would be using as an administrator, but actually not everyone uses or gets involved in certain aspects of delivery support. And that's mainly because of the organization that you work with has defined their PMO administration role in a certain way, which means that, you know, financial management, a lot of people don't get involved in that because they've got other people within the business that allow them to actually pick up those kind of administrative tasks. So these are considered to be the top ones. So if we look at and click forward to delivery support again, you can see here that with the delivery support stuff, so that's all those things, that combination of things we've just seen, is that you're supporting, you could be coaching and educating as well, depending on the level that you are. So you could be working in PMO administration for a number of years, and actually, you know, you've become really, really knowledgeable and experienced in what it is you're doing. So not only do you support project managers, that actually you could be helping new ones that are coming into the, you know, into the organization. So you could be coaching and educating them too. But also it's about the consistent application of the delivery frameworks, the processes, the procedures, the tools and the templates to help them succeed. And then, does anybody's got any comments or any thoughts about what you've seen here, just make sure you drop them into chat. But essentially here, this is where we're talking about where we're supporting the project through the life cycle, through the delivery life cycle. So that could be that, you know, predominantly, you know, we've talked before about things like the Prince2 method, or, you know, any kind of waterfall one, or anything that your own organization has devised because it works best for their organization. But whatever framework that you're working within, you know, ultimately your job is to support all the way through that life cycle, and getting involved in using various processes, different tools, different templates, all of that kind of good stuff. But you're doing it right across delivery life cycle, and you're doing it in certain areas such as risk management, change control, all of those things that you've just listed. So those are the competencies, yeah. So these are the kind of things that are, you know, are project related. You know, these are the what are considered to be, you know, to be competent. So not great. To be competent, to be able to just do the job, these are the kind of things that you need to have. So what you can also, we also look at in terms of the competency framework is around knowledge. And that's about the things that you need to know that are not necessarily project related. And these are the things that we consider to be, you know, the 6 things that you're seeing on the screen now. These are the ones where you are considered to just know about the organization. You know, if you think about, you know, we're working within a project environment, but we're working within a larger organization that is delivering, doing business as usual stuff. So it's about all those tools that you have to use from an organization's point of view. Who always gets there's somebody in the team that needs to buy a new piece of kit. They always come to the PMO administrator and saying, how on earth do I get this raised or approved? How do I go about buying something here? You know, it always falls to the administrator because they're generally the person that knows how things get done in the wider organization's context. So it's things like, you know, who does report to who and who has authority to do certain things. You know, the way that projects get delivered is like, you know, the different methods and frameworks that we use. So there's things that are set in stone sometimes, things that we've got manuals and books about and things that we can access on the internet. But actually, you know, most of the time stuff just gets done because it's how we've always done things around here, and this is how we work. It's kind of like those things that are more of the culture of where we're working and how that impacts how things get done on projects. It's the administrator that tends to be that person that knows these kind of things, and that's how you generally be that magnet to people that, you know, are trying to find their way and get things done. So it's different processes and procedures that organization might, might have. And, when a decision does need to get made, who do people need to be looking to? So it's things like that. It's that kind of knowledge that underpins what it is that you do when you're a PMO administrator. But it's not necessarily, totally project related. It's just how we get things done around here. So if you look at skills then, so skills are about your learned ability to be able to do something. So, these again there's guidance in the competency framework, but there's umpteen skills that you will be using all the time, and perhaps not even aware that it's a skill, but it is something that you've learned to do over time. So then again, these are some of the the obvious ones that come out of the competency framework against this PMO admin role. A classic: you can't be a PMO administrator if you've got terrible time management. This is just one of the things that PMO administrators tend to be really good at, is just being able to manage the time when things need to be done, and when by, and what's the deadline on this, and it's just that the innate thing that goes into being an administrator. And that's an administrator not just in the project role, but any kind of administrator. You are the one that just tends to be highly organized, and in underpinning that is great time management. Other things on there is that the ability to prioritize is obviously one, but communication is obviously, you can't be a central point of a contact in a team if you're not great at communicating with people. So that's an obvious one. But again, it's, well, what does that really mean? So how can we expect to see a PMO administrator communicating well? What will we visually see? And we'll come on to that one in a second. But these are all the kind of things that skills that we learn to do. Like even learning, is a skill. The ability to learn and to learn well is a skill in itself. Learning is not just about picking up a book and reading or watching a presentation. There's more to it in terms of how you actually learn something, by using practical application and so on. So these are feel really wide. When we talk about skills, we're not necessarily just talking about PC skills or IT skills. These are the things that, again, when you mix them all together, these are the things that allow you to become competent at your job. In order to be able to complete a risk management log, what actual skills do I need to be able to do with that? So, for example, if you're updating a log, you need to be able to engage with others in order to get that information. You need to be able to interview, in other words, ask the right questions. You need to be able to communicate, obviously, in order to extract that information and then communicating it back out in written form. So there's different types of skills that underpin what it is that you do as an administrator. Let's look at the behaviours, because I think this is where a lot of what elevates people in their roles is actually about the behaviours. Now, I've often wondered, when I earlier on in my career, I find it really hard to understand, well, what do you mean by behaviours? And until somebody explained to me really well, and it became obvious then. Essentially, behaviours are things that you can see. The things that you can see of somebody. So I always thought that behaviours might be something where you might have got strong values or strong ethics and stuff. You can't see those things. These are not behaviours. The behaviours are what you can actually physically see when somebody is in front of you or talking to you or acting or conducting themselves in a certain way. And it's these kind of behaviours that essentially, when mixed with the job that you're doing, you imagine yourself there with your project manager and your project team, and you're, in a meeting together, and they're wanting somebody to make sure that the minutes have been taken correctly. For me, a behaviour, what I would see well there would be that I would actually be able to see that administrator saying, you know what, I didn't quite catch that action. Can you just bringing that up as a thing? Can you make sure that, can you just explain that to me a little bit better? Or actually, I'm not quite sure where that action went to. Can you just reiterate that? That's the kind of thing you're seeing from somebody. It's not necessarily a knowledge thing. It's not necessarily a skill thing. It's just somebody who's just checking, so there you can see it's like they're paying attention to details, keeping people up to date, making sure that tasks are being completed, being a team player. And you think about when we say I'm a team player, what would you actually see of somebody? What behaviors would they be, you could see in front of your own eyes that they actually are a team player? To have a think about the kind of behaviors, that other people are picking up about you when you go about your job. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about behaviors. So it's a mix of, so far, the competencies, the knowledge, skills, and behaviors. But I also think, in my experience, I too started as a PMO administrator many, many years ago. But I also think that character comes into it as well, which is something different to behaviors. It is something more akin to personality, but it's not just about personality either. And I've just popped down some of the ones that kind of popped into my head about what makes, a good PMO administrator. And I think it's definitely, you have to be a person that is approachable, because it is like I said, you're at the central point. You're that project manager's right hand man or woman. And you've got to be able to show that you've got an open door and that anybody can drop by and ask about anything, no questions, silly, and all that kind of stuff. Yes, you do have to be patient. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in projects that could test the patience of many of us. But it's the role where actually you are the one that's got to try and remain calm, and things will happen, and where things are getting done, and it's that kind of that steadiness as well. But I also think a good sense of humor is crucial, because again, projects can be stressful places, and sometimes it's needed that there is a place where just come and drop by my desk, let's just give me a catch at what's going on in the project, and all of those kind of things is again combined with that approachability. But again, just being really conscientious or organized or adaptable. I'd really love it if you could drop into chat. What do you think, from your experiences, personality wise, might make a good PMO administrator? If there's something that's not already been mentioned on these 4 boxes, because those were literally, up the top of my head, thinking back about not only doing the job myself, but also how I've worked with other PMO administrators in the past as well. So hopefully, so far, we've talked about competency, knowledge, skills, behaviors, and character. And those are the 4 things that I expect, combined together, that really do give the role of a PMO administrator and what we need to have. Let's just, before we move on to what makes them great, let's just have a look at, just to cement it all. But this is an average kind of day for a PMO administrator. So you've got a busy day. We're kicking off straight away in the morning. There's got to be a room booking being sorted out for a kind of steering committee on Wednesday. So that's coming up later on in the week. So we've got some planning to do beforehand. We've also, after we've sorted that out, managed to get the agenda out to everybody who needs to be attending. There's a technical spec that needs formatting. I used to hate this part of the job. I don't know about you doing this, but any kind of project documentation that needed people just dashing stuff out in Word, and then it was given to you, and you had to kind of like make it fit the company template and the right headers, and making sure the table of content actually worked when you right clicked on it. All of that. But again, you tend to become that person that does know how to do those special little things in Word or Excel. These are the kind of things that you can dash off when you've been doing it for a while. We've also got a lot of chasing to do. So there's like the timesheet stuff, and that again, it's how do we chase people? How do we do it with a well, we're not becoming annoying, but actually we need stuff from people, and it's how do we choose to go about doing that? We can choose the approach we want to make. We can choose the behaviors that we want people to see. And again, it's not just about doing the job, the physical job of pulling together a report about timesheeting. It's about how we've got that information in the first place. coming up to lunchtime and there's a lunch and learn. Hopefully some of you are getting involved in stuff like this and do have the opportunity, because that's another thing that you'll find about PMO administrators, is that it's all about the learning, you know, and eyes and ears and being a sponge and listening to what's going on, because it does ultimately help you to do your job better. But again, you know, lunch and learns are also just about, you know, expanding our minds a little bit more. They tend to be about subjects that are not necessarily to do with how I'm doing my job, but, you know, it might be about a certain aspect of, you know, a part of project management that you weren't 100% about, or they can be lunch and learns tend to be about how a new process might be coming on board. And again, it gives you that opportunity to not only learn about new stuff, but also, you know, chat to others while you're there as well. So it's that kind of networking thing, and you'll be broadening your own network within your business. And we've got a project status update meeting, and gosh, this one's a long one. It's from 1:30 until 4 o'clock. You remember these kind of meetings that, you know, go on and on and on. But, you know, they're you know, a lot of the time you're there to, you know, be right next to that project manager, that program manager, that portfolio manager, making sure that that meeting goes according to plan, and crucially that whatever outcome that project manager is looking for, that you're helping to support to get to that point. You know, so again, there's a lot goes on in those meetings that ultimately, you know, you are eyes and ears, you know exactly what's going on. So it's just listening and understanding, because you'll know that somebody will be back at your desk the day after. Oh, can you remember that point that was brought up in that meeting, and such said they were going to do it? Who else was supposed to be doing that? You know, these are the kind of things that you will get all the time. And then you've got, after that meeting, it's just getting on with the minutes, and you know, you'll crack on with it. It'll be fresh in your mind, but you'll be picking it up again in the morning. And then towards the end of the day, it's just checking up on all the other stuff that's been coming in. Plus you've got a backlog of things that are kind of like ticking away. You know, they're the bullet points at the bottom, but you just need to, you know, those are the things when you've got a spare minute that, yes, I need to make sure I pick those up as well. Busy old job, isn't it? Interesting job. And hopefully, you know, you all agree that it's being in a PMO role is certainly never a dull day. Or if there is a dull day, maybe that's the day when we can kind of recharge before the next massive meeting happens the day after. So let's have a look at then the top 5 things that make a great PMO administrator. Now, there is no research in this. We've not done a you know, a yearly study on and profiled many people about what makes a great PMO administrator. It's just all from, you know, just the real life things that we've learned along the way, working with PMO people over the last 20 years, you know, and listening to people talking about their job and how other people react to them. I mean, one of the great things we do here at House of PMO is obviously getting people networking together. And you often find that when you are talking to other people, there'll be somebody talking about an aspect of their role, and you'll say, wow, you know, I wish we were doing that kind of thing in our organization, or oh, we could be doing that kind of thing, but maybe I just need to go away and think about it a little bit more. So you're listening to how other people do the job day in, day out. And certainly we do. And I think this is what we just want to come back at you with, and just give you a little food for thought. So I'm not going to necessarily be talking about, you know, you must be able to do timesheet reports and make your dashboards look amazing. It's not what actually makes a great PMO administrator. But first of all, first one is about trust. I think that once you gain that trust, whether it be from your project manager and your project team, or, you know, anybody else that you're working closely with, I really do believe that once you have gained that level of trust, it makes your job so much easier. It also means that you get given a lot more opportunity. And what tends to happen is that once you're doing the job competently, so, you know, you come in, you can do that job, and people know that, you know, that's your, you know, that I can give that work to you and you get on with it. It's only, I think, until you've started to get a certain level of trust that will give you something that's more weighty, a bit more meaty, something that's you know, it's going to take you onto the next level of administration, maybe, or going on to, or, you know, maybe more of an analyst role. And those opportunities do tend to come more when you built that trust with your project manager. And I think generally what tends to happen is that you know, they really do want somebody there right next to them, that they know that, you know, they've got the ability to not only get on with, you know, what needs to happen, but you know, there's a trust there, and it does become a special relationship, I think, once you've got that level of trust. So have a think about, you know, how you are today at work. You know, is there a level of trust? Is it a deep trust, or is there still a little skepticism between the relationship between you and whoever it is you're supporting? You know, how do you think you could possibly help to deepen trust with the people that you're supporting? I think that generally, by and large, it is by doing a good job, you know, that you're trusted in that way. But again, it just come because you know, it's a projects are stressful environments, and it's sometimes, you know, from a project manager's point of view, it's good to have an ally and somebody that they know as you know, is there to help them in whatever they need to, you know, need help in. So that's one to think about, so the trust side of it. We talked about administrator. For me, that word goes hand in hand with being highly organized. You are somebody who is you catch the ball, you know, safe pair of hands, that you will you get on with it. You can adapt, you can flex, you can work on your deadlines, all of that kind of stuff. But also you tend to become unflappable. And the reason why you're unflappable is that, well, somebody comes to you with a problem and straight away all you can think about is solution. That is, in a nutshell, administrator is somebody that says, yeah, okay, so let me understand the issue that you've got. Right, okay, but I think we can get X, Y, or Z to help us with that. Or we just need to go and talk to this department over here. Or actually, such and such on this project team over there, I think they might have something. It's that kind of, you know, I'm very much thinking of, it's not problems, it's, you know, we're there to help with the solution. And again, when you're working in a busy project environment, you know, this is where you live it. This is where you get the buzz of doing your job. You know, a big busy project, lots going on and lots of stuff being thrown at you, and you know, is generally what makes a great PMO administrator, is that how you thrive in that kind of environment. So yeah, that's the one about being highly organized. And I think the learning stuff really has to be up there. That you genuinely want to know more about projects and project management and how things work and how things can be done better. I think that it's also important that you are interested in people, because that's what project management is all about. It's all about the project, you know, it's all about the people, how they interrelate with each other. Yes, we're working within a delivery framework, but projects and things, you know, the stress comes from how people choose to work together, you know, or not. And you know, the PMO administrator certainly has a role in that, in you know, in bringing harmony sometimes. You know, I honestly believe in, certainly thinking back at my experiences where there has been some fraught times on projects. It's like, okay, so yesterday was a bad day, but hey, I stopped off at Marks and Spencer's and bought some biscuits in. Anybody want one of these? It's a new day. Let's crack on. Let's do it better this day. It's that kind of thing that, you know, it's about empathy and understanding people and wanting to, you know, get people to work better together, and just loving being the center of that, I think, is also important. But from the other side is that you are listening and taking on a lot of information about the project that you're supporting all the time. You'll also be learning a lot more about the business in which you're working. You're a lot closer to, you know, understanding and people talking about the strategy. You know, so how does me working in this project relate to the strategy of the business? It's not so far away. And again, it's whether you're interested, it's whether you actually actively want to seek and understand some of this stuff, will mean that your career will kick on. You know, you'll be able to, you know, get more things to do or different projects to try, because you become that person that is, yeah, actually we want Joe Bloggs on our projects as our administrator, because, you know, they've been great. They're actually interested in what's going on and interested in what we're doing. The team of techies, okay, you don't understand the technical solutions that they're working on, but you've got a vague enough idea to understand that actually the coding team over there are in a nightmare today because this can't seem to get a little bit of something right. So, you know, let's just wander over there and check them a biscuit or two and get a smile on their faces. It's that kind of thing that I think makes a really good administrator, is kind of reading the situations and thinking about the people side as much as the you know, what's going on in the project. So, you know, recall you might have heard the term growth mindset. That's what you need to be thinking. It's like, you know, I'm always learning. I should always have my head open to what's going on and asking questions. So there you go. You've got to be approachable. You genuinely want to help. There's nothing worse than an administrator that doesn't have that kind of, I don't want to use the word customer service, but it kind of is, but it isn't. It's more than just taking on board, you know, being nice and I can point you in the right direction. It's more than that. You know, I've got that little note there at the bottom about you do want to be a port in a storm, you know, when things aren't going so great, you know, but you genuinely want to muck in and try and find that solution. But again, I think it's important that you are approachable. I remember in my earlier career having somebody working with some of the PMO administrators that scowls on their faces. It's like, oh God, don't ask me to do this, it's not my job. And you know, and I don't that to me is not a project centric way of working. And projects are about teams, and more so, you know, that the administrator role is absolutely central to the team as well. And you know, nothing worse than not being able to approach people because it looks like they're a bit like not looking very helpful. So that would be genuinely, you know, this is what's really going to make, you know, a great PMO administrator. And this one, and I get it as a lot of people, and this is not just at an admin level, by the way, it's just when I talk to people about the PMO jobs for the analysts, managers or directors, this has consistently come out over that time. But you're naturally inquisitive. Some people do call it nosy. But there's that natural wanting to know what's going on and, you know, asking those questions. And, you know, you I think to be working within PMO, and certainly as your career, if you want to take it further up a tree in PMO, you do need to know what's going on. And generally listening and understanding what's not being said as much as is being said. Because part of the role of a PMO administrator is certainly that you're looking at, okay, so our project has to be delivered under a certain framework, yeah, whether you're using Prince 2 or, you know, whatever you might be using. Part of your role is actually to make sure that the project is, you know, that's part of the project manager's role, is to make sure that they are following the mandated way of delivering projects within that business. And part of your role as supporting of that project manager is to make sure that actually they're doing what they said they're going to do. You know, so you do have some quality assurance type activities sometimes in there. And that's where you've got to get inquisitive and be delving a little bit more and not taking things at face value. You know, so when people are giving you those progress reports and you're looking at those progress reports and saying this one is identical to last week, the only thing that's changed on it is the date. It's things like that. So you start to be a bit more, you know, there's a little Sherlock Holmes moment going on here. It's just something's not right. Something's not smelling right. And those are the kind of things that really make an administrator stand out. So if you're with me so far, does it feel like, you know, some of these, the great things, you know, that we're on the right track, that this is what you're expecting to listen to? Are you looking at some of these and thinking, you know what, I'm doing okay. I feel like I'm, you know, I'm doing a lot of this already, and you know, there's always room for improvement, but hopefully it's starting to, you know, to make some sense that what a great PMO administrator is. But you're probably interested in this side as well, because we naturally always are, aren't we, to know what's on the other side. So top 5 things that make a not so great PMO administrator. Any thoughts? Any thoughts? Anybody want to drop into chat what they reckon is not what makes not great PMO administrator? I'll give you a few seconds. We've just had some people dropping into chat about what we thought about the list so far. Aaron, I totally agree with you, Aaron. A big question is how to find those people when interviewing. And we've got a session coming up, actually. I can't remember when. Have a look at the events board about interviewing. So yeah, it's all in the questions, right? But obviously, but yeah, we're and also we've got some people here, and not actually not exactly administrators, but managers. That's good. That's good. So you know what you're looking, you're wanting to find. So I'm glad it's striking a note with you as well. So people that don't make so great PMO administrators, they think they know everything, so don't ask. Brilliant. I like that, Dawn. Thomas, I guess sloppy and grumpy. Yeah, I mean, what I've tried to do with this next list is not to have a mirror of what makes great ones. So I've had to, when I realised I was going to do it, I'm like, I can't just do a mirror of it, that's pathetic. Yeah, Catherine, you're absolutely right. As a PA, make brilliant PMO administrators, certainly around the being highly organised, deadlines, even, you know, supporting some prima donnas. I'm sure you've had some of those in your time. Divas, you can certainly come across those in projects, so yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's have a look then. So PMO administrators. Now I really, you know, I had to wrap my brains a bit here because I didn't want to be awful. This I have seen quite a few times, and I think it's really sad, actually, is that people don't see themselves as part of a delivery team. They see themselves more as administrators and secretaries and PAs and whatever. They see themselves kind of like out of it, when actually, I've said all the way through this session, you absolutely are the center of a project when when you're supporting people. And I never used to like it when we used to have like away days for work, and you'd see all the kind of administrators all huddling together, just like talking about nonsense and all the rest of it. Whereas actually they should have been together with all their, with the delivery people and listening to what were going on. And it felt to me like, no, if you're serious about being a PMO administrator, you have to see yourself as part of a project team, not part of a secretarial pool. Now, it could be, that's just my experiences, but that's what I certainly had seen, which I didn't think was so great. And I think it certainly does hold people back, certainly if you've got aspirations to do more in projects. The other one is that you just follow the process without thinking about improvements. That's one of the things that when you're supporting, you often just, who's put this process in place, and you're right, okay, well, we're just going to follow this and we'll do things because it's always been done like this. But actually, the good thing about working in projects and why a lot of people want to work in projects, it's one of those jobs where you're always thinking and you're always learning and you always want to try and find a different or better solution to something. That's why it's such an interesting job for people. That's why people, spend years trying to, how can I get into projects? We had it for, I've been working with people like that over the last 20 years, and it's just, there's a reason why this job stands out. And I think it is because a lot of the time you can make things better, you can make improvements, but you've got to really be thinking about what it is that you're doing, rather than I'm just doing the rote and I'm going through the motions. It's almost like if we've been given a checklist for this, and I've got to make sure that everything's ticked off, without actually thinking about, well, why are we doing this checklist in the first place? And actually, we could be doing something completely different. Why are we still using Excel when we could be using a Power App? It's just as easy, to do. It's basically the kind of job where you can make certain improvements that, honestly, when you do that kind of thing, people look at you differently. I think elephant in the room a lot of the time with a PMO administrator is that a lot of people that you're working with will have had other experiences of working with other administrators, and they could come across administrators that don't do very much, but do literally, just do the bare bone job. And they bring those perspectives with them whenever they start a new project, whenever they start a new organization. And sometimes we just, you're battling against, well, look, don't just look at me like a secretary, because I'm not. I'm here to support a project and support you and support the project manager. There's a lot more to his job, but that's the thing that you're often battling with, is people's perceptions about what an administrator can do on a project. And often it feels like you've got to go that extra mile, do that extra bit more to just prove people wrong. And I think this is some of the things that are behind some of my, the not so great. Doing things like not checking what you're doing. There is this thing about that attention to detail. And I think certainly one of the things that gets leveled at PMO administrators is that they'll take information in and just do something to it, copy and paste it, and send it back out again without actually doing and adding any value whatsoever, including checking what it is you're doing, checking for the grammar, the spelling mistakes, all of that kind of stuff. But that's ultimately, you're there to be doing that reviewing and checking. So again, I think it's it is one that that does annoy a lot of people, as does doing the minimum, which is said it's these people that are, it's not in my job title, it's not in my job spec, it's not, I don't need to do that kind of thing. You should be looking at, yes, sometimes we get asked to do things that we don't want to do, and that happens in every single walk of life. But actually sometimes you need to change the mindset a little bit and be thinking, okay, look, I'm going to do this because I'm doing it for a team. The team needs something to happen, and we need to overcome a certain hurdle or whatever it might be. And it's about being able to do that. Sometimes it feels like, I don't know if any of you get this, but sometimes you'll do something at work and you think, well, I haven't actually done that much, but everybody's like gushing about it, thinking I've done like something really amazing. And actually all I've done is to switch this to that, or change this dashboard picture around or something. And everybody suddenly thinks you can walk on water. It doesn't take much to be, to put yourself as being a great PMO administrator, and that is to sometimes just reading the room, just go a little bit extra, because it'll all come out in the wash that if you will know, you'll be that person that does make the Catherine's talking about she gets us the way that she used DocuSign. Exactly. Some people just think some of the stuff that we're using is like rocket science or voodoo, and actually it's because you're using your combination of knowledge, skills, behaviors, all those kind of things, and that's it's not hard at all. And I said this, the last one is this one. It really does get on people's nerves, I think, about PMO administrators, and that you're just copying and pasting stuff. You get these reports in, you copy and paste that into another one, and then you send it out. Is that the same as not checking what you're doing? Possibly, but I've heard it said it to me loads of times. It's like, oh, it's just copy and paste PMO, but it's, you've got to think about what little and sometimes it is only little things. What little things can you be doing that really do make a little, a big difference? And like you said, as Catherine said, with DocuSign, it doesn't need to be something that's amazingly different. Aaron's put in here, lost count the number of times one of his PMO team forwards something to him and asks what it means, and they don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's, but to be fair, the number of times that sometimes the PMO administrator will not put their hand up and say, I don't understand what it is. I don't understand what you're asking me to do. I don't understand what this particular piece of work or this report might be about. You get that too. But again, that comes back to this whole bit about growth mindset and about learning, is that you should be asking questions. Absolutely. It's just that when you're asking the same question over and over again, that's when you've got problems, so you're showing that you're not learning. But essentially, those are my 5 not so great. If there's any more that you want to put in there that you think should go in as being a not so great, please let me know. Yeah, stick them into chat. Okay, so we how many minutes we've got? We've got 10 minutes left, and I've got a couple more slides. So I said about ending on a high note. So if you want to get your not so greats into chat, get them in there. But the not so great, the ending on a high note. So right now, this picture is to detect to show you the 2 sides of a PMO administrator, and indeed, to be fair, any other PMO role. But I just think it's worth just mentioning these, and this is the art and the science to the role. Okay, you also might have heard that saying, winning hearts and minds. Hopefully you understand, what that saying means, that when you're trying to win people over, and you've got to appeal to both their heart and their mind. Yeah, so it's got to be logical, got to win them over logically, but also emotionally, that hearts and minds. So it kind of like fits in with these. Okay, so the art side of the role. I said to you before, it's about people, and as soon as you realize that projects are not about Prince 2 or methods or templates, and realize that it's about people, and start observing them differently, or really trying to focus a bit more on what's being said and not being said, and things like that. It is about people. It is about psychology of how people work together in workplaces, in teams, and all that kind of stuff. It is about the relationships and the allegiances that people make. Who's looking after who's back, who's having a grudge with whom, with politics, what is going on between, customer, maybe you and the customer, your organization and the customer, the grudges that go on, the stress, but there's also the fun and the laughs that go in there. So it's just this whole thing of, it's the people stuff is the real, nub of it all. And that's ultimately what makes projects succeed and fail. But also that in this particular role, you can help people. You do know where to find the right people who have the answers if you don't. And there's always been this thing of they called the PMO the connector. If you're thinking about an organization and the different networks, how people connect to each other. If you look at the project, you'll see that it's always that administrator has the most connections in and out of the project, because they tend to be the person that moves from project to project. We know more people. Yeah, so it's an interesting one where you think about, where I sit in relation to, other people and who I know versus, my project manager. You tend to know a lot more people within the business, and you'll certainly know people who have answers for some of the project problems that your project manager doesn't. So this is when we were talking about the arts and minds, this is very much the emotive and the emotional side of projects. And if you recognize that is a big part of what's going on, it makes the science bit of it, hopefully a little bit more, it's a logical side. It's all about the project management and the different processes and approaches and procedures and tools and templates and action plans, all those things that are in place to help us manage people better. That's ultimately what it's all about. You're helping, all these things are in place is to help people to do their projects better within a framework, putting some boundaries in, do mandated stuff, whatever it might be. It's a logical side of it. And for a PMO administrator, it's knowing when things need to be done and in what order and by who. And that's ultimately what you're supporting. It's very basic. It's very basic common sense thing of project management, is knowing when things need to be done. And often you'll be working that out with your project manager, who needs to be doing it and when we're doing it. And that's ultimately it. I mean, sometimes I think we complicate project management and it's unnecessary. Certainly at this PMO administrator level, it's just if you understand that, the basics, everything else that you start to build on top, the language that we use and all that kind of good stuff. So this is the mind side of the hearts and minds. So that's leaving it on a high note, believe it or not. It's just two parts to your role. Is sometimes you look at a role like a PMO administrator, you look at a session like we've called it, top 5 things, PMO administrators, great PMO administrators. Did we hit the right note for you? That's what we want to know right now in chat. If you've stood at your keyboard, sandwich in one hand, hopefully you can type with one hand. Have we covered what you wanted to get out of a session called the top 5 great things that makes a great PMO administrator? Absolutely. Thank you very much. If there's anything else that you thought, no, actually I want to X, get it in chat now, because you know what? We can do another session and we can do it with a different focus. We want to be able to give you what it is that you want in order to be able to do your job better. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we do at House of PMO. So anything you've seen on here, we talked about the PMO competency framework. You can go back onto the website, you can have a look at that. It's on the front page. That is about, you know, how to do the job and what competencies are involved and what knowledge, skills and behaviors, all that kind of stuff. If you're a member of House of PMO, you can do your self-assessment online, and you can do it, you know, as part of your membership benefit. You know, there's a lot more stuff you can be doing in order to build your skills around that. There's also a qualification for essentials for PMO administrators, which is actually focuses on the essentials that you need to be a PMO administrator. So you might want to have a look at that. And there's another couple of sessions coming up in the next couple of weeks. We've got Risk Management 101. So that's taking it back to basics. If you don't do risk management now and you want to know more, that's one for you. If you're doing it now but want to know a little bit more, that's for you. If you've been doing it for years, that's also for you, because it's always good to go back to basics. And then we've also got the PMO self-assessment. So we've just been talking about part of your membership benefit is to be able to do your self-assessment. Why not join us on that session and learn all about, well, what is a self-assessment? And if I'm a PMO administrator, why would I do something like that? How is it going to help me do my job? So that is the end of the session for today. So thank you very much for taking the time out. I hope you've enjoyed having a listen, and we will hopefully see you at any of those 2 sessions that are coming up in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, just get in touch. You know where we are. Yeah, be lovely to see you on a future one. Okay, take care. Bye.